Hi guys, my name is Karthik and I am from ExecuteAutomation.com and welcome to another video from ExecuteAutomation. And today in this EAWeekend video series, we have Artem, the co-founder of testRigor tool that we have been discussing in our YouTube channel so far. So you might have seen that the machine learning and artificial intelligence of this testRigor tool is pretty exciting. You just write some text and it automatically does all the operations for you on the browser or any tool that you are using. So that's exactly is the power of this testRigor by using machine learning and artificial intelligence in it. And we don't know exactly how this testRigor works, or we also don't know like some of the questions that I have been getting from the testRigor questions on the videos is that like how testRigor works and what are the things that we need to probably use in testRigor, or how testRigors can be scaled for bigger projects, something like that. If you guys have these questions pretty much like me, and the questions that you have already asked in the videos, those things will be answered directly by the co-founder of the testRigor itself. So let's introduce Artem, the co-founder of this tool. So over to you, Artem.
Hi guys, nice to meet you, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions today.
Awesome, Artem. Yeah, so I think some of the common questions that we have been getting, especially on the videos, while we started with the first video of the testRigor, is like, what is testRigor and how testRigor is actually different from other tools, because there are so many other tools available in the market. And even there are some tools which are artificial intelligence based tools and machine learning based tools. Some of them are like visual testing tools. So why testRigor and what difference is that going to make in the market at the moment?
Absolutely, thank you for the question. So number one challenge that testRigor solves is test maintenance, and we believe there's no other tool which comes even close. And how much we reduce test maintenance. Not only it does for you out of the box based on how it works, but also we are the only company on the market which provides you tools to very quickly adapt to new functionality. And the result is, compared to Selenium, our customers spend less than 0.5% of their time maintaining tests compared to how much time they used to spend maintaining Selenium tests. And that is huge if you think about it. So this on its own solves a capping problem. What does it mean? If you're using Selenium or majority of other frameworks, what's happening is that initially you're building tests pretty quickly, but over time, your time is capping out, and most of the time you spend maintaining existing tests as opposed to writing new tests, especially if the application is developed very quickly and functionality changes dramatically very quickly. So then basically, point being is you don't want to spend a lot of time on your test maintenance. What you want to do and what testRigor helps you to achieve is to continue build tests to achieve your automation goals instead of mostly working on maintaining your tests and barely be able to build anymore. So this is by far number one challenge which we solve for our customers. A second most popular feature is we enable non-technical people to be able to build, understand, and maintain tests, even very complex tests. And that's a big deal. I mean, for example, you will be able to very easily and quickly create a sign-up flow test, generating a unique email every time and extracting code from that email. It's all like literally describing it in English. Everyone would be able to do that. So we empower manual QA to build test automation 15 times faster than QA engineers with Selenium. Moreover, because it's all in plain English, people are able to collaborate. In fact, because of rules, which you have seen on these channels, you can create rules reflecting your own functionality, and that enables true BDD. So we are the only tool on the market which enables you to be able to effectively do BDD with exactly the language you yourself use to describe the functionality. Because you create the rules like literally reflecting your own terms, how you describe your own functionality yourself in your test cases, and then you just go ahead and copy paste your test cases in testRigor, and they will execute out of the box. And there is no code behind it, and product managers will be able to create you executable specifications without any involvement from QA engineering whatsoever before feature is released, regardless how complex feature is, like it is possible. So those are all the features which are unlocked because of this plain English approach which we provide. And finally, the third, because like our functionality is done on end user's perspective, it is as stable as your specification. Our executable specification will only fail if your specification is no longer true. How we achieve that is because testRigor is not a framework like Selenium. It is a system, which means that it is the same framework, infrastructure, and the UI. And because testRigor runs its own infrastructure, it is able to automatically address all the issues related to the infrastructure, making your tests unimaginably stable. So much so that we have a lot of customers, about 20% of our customers are using testRigor as a monitoring tool, setting it up with PagerDuty, risking a very good night's sleep if any of testRigor tests will fail. So this is the level of stability we provide to our customers. And just compared to traditional frameworks, look how easy it is to build tests, right? So on the left is a very, very simplified and limited version of a login test. It lacks a lot of stuff which you would usually write to build a proper test in Selenium. There is no like retries, there is no handling any errors, there is no waits and delays, there is no any kind of setup here whatsoever. So working on defaults, holding fingers and hoping everything will work. On the right is basically the same thing in testRigor, and it is as stable as this specification, because testRigor, when it executes, it emulates how a user would do that, and therefore it handles in particularly all delays, timeouts, and all this kind of stuff out of the box in most efficient way possible, emulating how a human would do it, interacting with the browser. In general, we think of testRigor is a common sense framework. So when we execute testRigor instructions, like in this particular example, it's based on common sense. For example, here, like you can say things like enter a product into search products, and the test into first name, and the rigor into last name, and the system will automatically associate whatever looks like a label to input with an input, so you can actually save things like that, regardless how it is implemented in HTML. However, tomorrow, engineers would decide to change how it looks, remove labels altogether, And instead of labels, put first name as a placeholder on those input. Well, testRigor will continue to function exactly the same way, and you'll have to do or change exactly nothing in order to maintain those tests. Why? Because it's common sense that you can refer to an input either through whatever looks like a label or through a placeholder. And this is what you do as a human when you describe your test cases in your test case management system, right? So basically, what testRigor is a common sense executable specifications for end-to-end testing. So basically, testRigor is finally bringing common sense to end-to-end testing, and this is what we do, and this is why we do it.
Awesome. This is great. I mean, Artem, I like this tools especially because the person who is trying to automate the system, they don't necessarily have to know any syntaxes, and all they need to do is to use the common sense, as you were telling, to see what is on the screen, start typing it with whatever language that they know, but just following some grammars while they write it, and the system magically works, which is quite cool. And also, the one thing which I was wondering, like the questions which I'm also getting from the community is, today this system is built using, let's say, React or Angular, something like that. Tomorrow something like a telerik control comes in. I mean, who cares, telerik control? I mean, it's a pretty complex UI control kind of it. And the customer, the company decided to implement that particular feature on this one. Instead of the first name, they put some fancy tooling for the UI tooling to put that first name over there. How that the system will start working on that kind of situations, like how to handle those complex controls in testRigor. How does these things work?
You have to do exactly nothing because it will just work out of the box. Again, as soon as your application still comply to your own executable specification, it will continue to function. Moreover, like it will even work in stuff like Salesforce. So you can automate your Salesforce implementation using testRigor, or Microsoft Dynamics implementation, be it Acceptor or CRM or whatever. Like you will be able to effectively build the implementation where, even though a Salesforce or Microsoft constantly change how they implement the controls.
Yeah.
We constantly change HTML, especially during regular releases several times a year, but it will not affect your tests whatsoever as soon as it looks like it's, as soon as it still complies with your own specification.
Awesome.
And another good use case for testRigor is a tool, because again, it allows you to express everything from a user's perspective and allows you to completely avoid use any details of implementation, meaning like anything in HTML, including IDs, which can change when you migrate from Angular to React, for example. It can you can effectively use it to test systems which you do not control, which will help you to build tests cross systems, spanning your own system as well as third-party systems which you integrate with, but you do not control how they do their rendering and what they do with their HTML. So this is basically a perfect example of of the best use case for testRigor. So you can take advantage of the stability and a kind of common sense approach to build those cross-system tests.
Great. So this is the magical thing, right? Like we always worry about the technology change in the UI and making the UI test very fragile. I mean, the UI test is more fragile only because either the technology in the UI changes, or we always fear that today we build in React and tomorrow if they change to Vue.js or whatever, our test starts breaking. Even though the screen is same, the functionality is same. And if we have this kind of feature, I think like 12 years before, I would be very happy because I was just keep writing all the UI test all these days. I mean, this is going to be a holy grail for many people. But this brings naturally to the next question, which I have in my list, is how testRigor is doing all these things behind the scene. I mean, you don't have to tell like everything, but something which we can know and learn, which will be great and helpful.
Yeah, it's basically a combination of like an unimaginable amount of boilerplate code, like handling of infrastructure, as like diff running machine learning models. Because if you think about it, you can't avoid it in certain cases. Well, for example, like association, what is a label, right? This is one. Another one, for example, you want to click on this icon. How do you click on it? From end user's perspective, you would say click on user icon, right? And this is exactly how you do, and how you can do it only by running machine learning model in order to assign labels to all these kind of icons, so you can do that. So those are just some examples. We have huge number of different machine learning models in order to be able to assist our customers to be able to get as close as technically possible to normal human way of describing what would you like to do with your application from end user's perspective.
Cool. So it's all the magics of machine learning doing things for us. Awesome. Okay.
It's a combination. It's more code than machine learning, but machine learning is also quite critical.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I mean, yeah, it's testRigor, and testRigor is mainly machine learning and artificial intelligence, and we were expecting the same answer. But the next question comes is like for a person to probably, let's say if an element is something not identifiable or some operation it couldn't able to perform. Let's consider a scenario, something like that in the system. Because in code, we have the control over going to change some behavior, like clicking all those things, and then perform this operation to make this thing happen. Is there any situation in testRigor where we could tell that we couldn't really able to, if we couldn't able to really perform this action, we could use something, I don't know, whether code or some command to make it forcefully perform some operation on the UI? Is there something like that in testRigor?
Do you mean a way to extend testRigor?
Yeah, something like that.
Sure
something like extending if the control is completely unidentifiable. So let's say if I'm saying click the update button, if there are like 10 update buttons, and I want to click the update button on like fourth update button, which is not even referencing any controls. It's like, how do I say, like, can I go and click like fourth update button, go and click fourth update button, something like that? Or something which is, there is an edge case. Let's assume there is an edge case which actually tells me that which even if I tell in the specification in the testRigor, it couldn't able to perform any action. How do I tell testRigor to handle those kind of situation if it couldn't able to handle performing an action which I have specified in the specification?
Just consult with the documentation and see how you would do that. So basically, you can say click on third or fourth update. You can say click on update below change your password, for example. You can identify, you can specify the context and a huge amount of stuff which you can do. You can relate to controls based on where hover, because we consider that also like eventually visible text from end user perspective if you hover over the mouse in there. So you can refer to that if it doesn't have a date. And you can technically do anything you can do with Selenium. testRigor is a superset of what you can do with Selenium.
Awesome. Cool. So while you say superset of Selenium, is this built on the top of Selenium, or how is that works?
We originally started from building it on top of Selenium. However, we had to basically get away from it and rewrite almost everything because we wanted it to actually work literally from an user's perspective. So our system would control the mouse and do the keyboard on OS level, interacting with the browser. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to, for example, to make drag and drop work in Internet Explorer.
Yeah.
How would you make your drag and drop work in your application on Internet Explorer browser? There's no way unless you literally imitating how users would do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Even with just even regular drag and drop, it wouldn't work in most of the cases. Like if you try to use built-in function and Selenium, it just sometimes just plain doesn't work. But if it's supposed to work, it sometimes does, but sometimes doesn't, because in Selenium, you're trying to hack your way through emulating the stuff through like hacks in JavaScript. Whereas how the testRigor works is like literally doing it on behalf of a user. So so we still have some Selenium libraries, and we do contribute back from time to time, but the majority of the system is now does not rely on Selenium. If Selenium magically disappear tomorrow, it wouldn't really affect much testRigor.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much, Artem, for telling us the testRigor's internals, like how it's been built and those things. Okay, so then the fourth question that I have is, this is the question which is most commonly asked in the community is, can I use testRigor for bigger project? Let's say I have a banking project, or for example, I have like a insurance project, which has got a lot of workflows and the scenarios are super big, even though we told that there is something called as like reusable rules which we can put to minimize the rules, like go perform the login operation, click the insurance, fill up your insurance details, or maybe don't even have to do all those things. Just asking, like, is there a way that, I mean, is there any use case that you have that there is any trouble in using testRigor for bigger project while compared to some other tools that have worked before, which can be used only for smaller projects, but when it comes to bigger project, again, people end up writing frameworks, writing the same automation code, putting it in CI/CD pipelines and things of that nature. Like, how is testRigor different and how it can be used in testRigor?
testRigor is actually designed for huge projects. We have customers which have some test cases more than 1,000 steps long. If you think about it, it's just completely nonsensical. But in some cases, nature of the product requires you to do so. For example, in fields of medical records or government and all this kind of stuff. And we have a lot of customers which have test suites with thousands and tens of thousands of test cases. And we make it very easy to deal with because we provide tools to deal with those test cases. And that is, in particular, for example, this ability to extract unique issues affecting multiple tests. You do not have it anywhere else. And you actually, it makes it easy as brief to work with tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of test cases in testRigor. Whereas if you try to do the same thing with Selenium, it's a huge nightmare, especially if you have large enough team, like tens of or hundreds of QA engineers building tests for you. it just would be basically impossible to manage with Selenium, whereas testRigor is very simple. For example, in this particular case, this issue affected 2 test cases. Imagine, let's say, an engineering change affected 1,000 test cases. In case, what do you do in all the systems, including Selenium, is that you go through each individual test and assess why did it fail. This is a full-time job for quite a long time, and it's just very annoying and just draining the time. Think about it. QA engineers are like highly paid, very intelligent people, are very expensive, and you're wasting people's time just on going through identical issues, catching identical issues in thousands of tests. It doesn't make any sense. So we help you to deal with that effectively. In a case of testRigor, let's say there is a change introducing 1,000 test cases failed, but you can see that there are actually 2 unique issues, one affecting 1 test and one affecting 1,000 tests. And then you'll be able to deal with that effectively, like in this example, let's say, for example, you renamed privacy policy to just policy. So you can remove that.
Yeah.
And you can click find all and click replace selected. Bam, it will fix it in place. Awesome. Why? Because testRigor tests are not just plain English. They are plain English, plain text. That means that you can use your favorite Git or whatever, like versioning system you love, with testRigor versioning of all your code, no problem. And you can leverage anything you can think of because it's a plain text, right? You can do find and replace, like this example, do case sensitive, the regular expressions. It opens up unlimited opportunities because of it being plain text.
Yeah, this is quite cool. I mean, the reason why the test pyramid makes more sense for testers like us, I mean, now we are happily accepting it, is because the problem with the UI testing tools that we have, like Selenium, like very fragile. Whatever tools that I have worked with, even though they claim they can be fragile less if we implement it better, but it always try to be very flaky. The UI always tries to be very flaky. And then we took the approach of test pyramid to make the unit testing more bigger, integration test next level, and then making the UI testing super small. Because the reason why we chose this to be super small is because testing in the UI is very flaky. But now I think that pyramid can be a bit reversed, because I could see that this tool is like a game changer, because it's doing so many things already, like making error free and also testing the system from like end to end, like a user perspective, straight away, regardless of whatever technology that we use or what is just running in the behind the scene, like a services like that. I mean, we can increase the coverage in the front level, which is on the UI level more, because it is less fragile now. And also it makes even more sense that if we make more testings to be done on the UI side, like a customer, we increase the coverage dramatically, which is quite cool. I mean, this tool is going to be like I think it's already a game changer. A lot of people are really using it. Like 1,500 steps is fabulous, because if 1,500 steps, to my understanding, after using testRigor, we can even write like 20 steps, like one reusable rules. And if we keep creating like 1,500 rules, for example, and every rules already has got more than 20 or 30 steps inside it, then I don't know how to do the math, but I think it's more than like 5,000 or 6,000 steps. And if you want to do the exact same thing with Selenium, I'm 100% sure that we will fail, because it will never run. To my experience, I've worked with many tools. And I never see a test which runs today will run tomorrow, even though we put a lot of effort to handle the errors and stuff. We keep improving the test automation rather improving the test. And I think this tool is already doing the opposite of it, because it keeps improving the quality of the product rather making us to focus on how the test automation works, which is quite cool. This
Yeah,
is
it's
interesting.
just, if you think about it, like what's the problem, why it is a challenge with Selenium, and why it is so flaky and takes so much time and is such a pain to deal with, is because when you write tests in Selenium, you're dealing with details of implementation,
Exactly.
namely HTML. So this
Yeah.
is exactly what testRigor helps you to avoid. So you're shifting from details of implementation up to a level of basically end user interactions and interacting from end user's perspective. And this is why it's more stable. And if you think about the reasons, original reasons why testing pyramid was introduced, and there are two, right? Well, three technically. Number one, it's very slow and long to build end-to-end tests.
Exactly.
It's a lot of challenge. Number two, tests are exceptionally flaky. There is no way you can use them in CD anyway, at least in those large quantities. And number three, test maintenance is a huge
It's a
chore.
nightmare.
It's just the more you introduce, the more basically you like eating up into your own time, and you can't really do anything elsewhere.
Yeah.
So those three reasons like basically led to people suggesting this nonsensical pyramid, because if you think about it, the only tests you need technically are end-to-end tests to represent your end user's experience. Well,
Exactly.
I'm a little bit exaggerating, so technically it should probably be more like hourglass, because you should do a lot of unit tests. Building unit tests will actually help you to speed up your engineering efforts. So it's completely unrelated. But when we're talking, my point is that technically speaking, from common sense perspective, number of end-to-end tests should be a lot and not a little. And the only reason why it was advised to be a little is because of those three problems. So now if you can solve all of these three issues, namely speed of test creation, test maintenance, and test stability, then you're no longer bound by it. Another issue is speed of test execution, which is actually very easy to solve with parallelization. You just execute all your tests in parallel, and just like that, thousands of tests can be executed within like 20 minutes, for example, right? So this is good enough for even for branch-based testing, if you'd like to do so. And if you have all of that resolved already, why wouldn't you have more end-to-end tests? Because technically this is what you want to have, because this is exactly what represents your end user experience, and you want to make sure that from end user's point of view everything works fine.
Exactly. Yeah, that's totally agreed, Artem. I mean, this is very interesting and very important for everybody to understand. Like why end-to-end testing is. I mean, end-to-end testing can be. I mean, right now people are thinking that end-to-end testing is very hard because of flakiness and stuff. But again, integration testing or unit testing, they will be helpful during the engineering development. But what happens if the system is very mature? Let's say banking application, because I've been working with banking so far. There is not going to be a dramatic change in the existing functionality, but every time while there is a release, we need to go back and test that UI, that existing functionality every time to ensure our little change that we have made is not breaking the whole system. But we have to do the exact same thing again on the existing functionality, like manual testing or automated or whatever, trying to figure out why our automation testing is failing and all those things. But again, we have to do it for sure. The end-to-end testing has to be covered over there. And if we keep that end-to-end testing very small due to the flakiness of automation, then we don't really do the exact coverage, like full coverage of the of the application. But this tool is going to be doing the complete opposite, to make the end-to-end testing more, even though our end-to-end the integration or the UI, the unit testings are going to be smaller or higher, doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, it's going to be really full coverage or maybe high coverage with this tool. I think this is interesting and important. And probably the final question I have, this is mostly everybody's question, because you see the portal first time, like, what is this testRigor is doing my scenario over there? Can I export these tools like my, I mean, there is no code here, right? Like, it's all text there. So is there a way that I can on-prem run this testRigor, like banking, for example? I don't have to put my secret details, even though there are some test data that I'm using. And some of the applications that we run in the bankings or some secured companies like defense, the applications will be running only on their network. It won't be exposed to the outside network. Like, how testRigor can handle those situations? Like, what is the solution for that?
Yeah, there are two groups of companies related to that. So the vast majority would basically open up like specifically this testing endpoint to our limited number of IPs, and that's it. Like, our system will be able to access the testing system under test, but nothing else would. And we are SOC 2 compliant, and therefore, like it is quite secure. We implement a huge number of security measures. And on one hand, however, we're always banking, military, and medical devices, which, like, regardless, you still will want to have everything on premise, no matter what. And in these cases, there is an option to deploy the whole testRigor system on premise. So however you interact with testRigor.com, it will be, I don't know, some
Bank.com,
testRigor.mybank insert inside your VPN, your private network in your bank.
Okay, so which means you are going to deploy the testRigor as a service for our data center, for the banking's data center, something like that.
Yeah, just literally everything which we have in testRigor will be in your data center, and that's it.
Okay, cool. And how about the machine learning models, learnings and stuff is going to be working?
All of it will be in your data center, including machine learning models.
Awesome. That's great.
Otherwise, it's just not going to work, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I'm just curious because that's going to be your secret sauce, which you probably going to put it in our system. So yeah, I think that's cool. I'm sure, definitely sure, you already have something in the roadmap, which is going to be more like a SaaS oriented, which is going to probably give like an 100% availability, pretty much like how Microsoft's machine learning or AWS machine learning is doing as a service. Probably you already have those kind of workings in progress, instead of deploying everything on the on-prem systems or their cloud systems. But for now, it's really interesting to hear that you already have thought about these things in place, which is cool. Because if people are going to start using this tool, the natural questions are these, which always hinders them to really use these tools. And I think you already answered that there is an option, which is cool. Yeah, I think these are the top 5 questions that I really have based on the communities and most of my earlier experience on the questions which I usually get from the community. But do you really want to add something else apart from something that we are missing? Artem?
Yes. So we are friendly, especially to open source. We will test all of your open source for free forever. And moreover, we also help our friends in manual QA to learn automation as easy as possible. And for that, you can go to testRigor.com, click on sign up, and select free public plan, which is and always will be free forever. You have to be careful though, because public means everything you do is public, including your credentials, test data, and everything else which you use to access system and the test. Of course, not testRigor, not your testRigor password. And how is that very beneficial for manual QA who learn automation is because you signed up. Basically, you're using unlimited testRigor system. You can build some tests to show off your skills, what you have learned about automation, because the concepts of automation spans any tool. It does not matter what tool you use. You can prove that you understand key concepts. Your employer will get the point, and they will understand, yes, so maybe you're using testRigor now, but you, based on your understanding of concepts of automation, you will be able to use the tool which they use themselves in their organization. And the reason why it's public is you can actually literally share your test cases with prospective employers and say, hey, look it up and see how I did automation for, like, I don't know, Amazon.com or whatever website for you choose, showing off your understanding of key automation concepts, because some of them are non-trivial.
Yeah,
and
I think
different from manual testing.
Exactly. I think this also proves anybody's skill on how much deep they put their knowledge on testing the system instead of just going and clicking the buttons. Probably just understanding the systems before even starting to test the system, which is, yeah, I think that's going to be pretty helpful. Yeah.
Yeah,
I like this
exactly.
plan.
Exactly. So basically, this is literally had been done for education, for educational purposes, so that people can self-educate for free. And we will be working more on that as much as we can. And you definitely should watch this YouTube channel in order to learn more about test automation. And you can practice using our system for free. Not only that, you will be able, once you feel comfortable, share results of your practice and show off your skills and automation with prospective employers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam. Thanks for mentioning about ExecuteAutomation as well as a learning system. And thank you so much for your time you have allocated. I know you're super busy, and this is the time frame that we got almost like a month, isn't it? Like we decided to talk to you like a month before. Yeah, but thank you so much for making this. And I know it's getting late for you as well. But the question and answers that we had, the discussions that we had is really, really helpful for the community who are going to ask the frequently asked questions. They could probably refer this video, which is going to answer all their questions, like most of the questions. And if there is going to be another pile of questions, I will probably come back to you on that. But I think this is good for the start and very helpful for beginner who is going to start jumping into automation, start using the free plan and get started with the automation without even writing a single line of code, which is cool. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thanks
for
you.
joining. Thank you. You have a great day.